What a rough night. Another day, another passenger gets dragged off a plane. Surprisingly though, everyone seems to be on the airline side on this one. The commotion on the Southwest flight from Baltimore to LA began when a passenger complained about 2 dogs on her flight, claiming she was deathly allergic. The 46-year-old woman demanded that the 2 animals be removed from the plane, but they couldn't since one of the dogs was a service animal. When she couldn't provide a medical certificate stating she was fit to travel, she was asked to deplane, but refused. So, as with most in-flight kerfuffles, law enforcement had to step in. What followed next was some dramatic and pretty aggressive manhandling down the plane aisle, to the horror of other passengers. At one point, the woman claimed the cops ripped her pants and insisted she could walk on her own. Officers pushed and pulled the uncooperative woman all the way off the plane, where she was then arrested and charged with disorderly conduct.
Then walk!
Don't touch me!
Walk!
Show them that you're walking.
Walk!
I can't walk!
Walk!
He's got my leg!
Walk! Right here, I have your leg. Right there.
Don't touch me!
Walk! Go carefully, just go thoughtfully.
Just please show them that you're walking.
There we go, just walk. Let it go.
Walk! I'm a professor, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Jeez, lady, get off the plane. Make the complaint later.
The dragging definitely triggers Major David Dow flashbacks, but the public isn't so sympathetic with this lady. For someone who claimed to have a life-threatening pet allergy, she sure as heck didn't want off that plane. Keep watching for more airline drama.
Delta is pushing United hard in the bad publicity stakes.
So my kid, so my wife's, we're gonna be in jail and my kids are gonna be what?
It's a federal offense if you don't abide by it.
Another day, another airline controversy. This time it's Delta in the spotlight for kicking passengers off an oversold flight. Only now it's an entire family with young kids getting booted off and threatened with jail if they don't comply. This video was filmed on April 23rd aboard Delta Airlines Flight 2222 from Hawaii to Los Angeles. It was posted to YouTube on Wednesday by Dad Brian Shear from Huntington Beach, California. Shear's wife Brittany started filming when airline staff asked the family to give up a seat they had paid for to make space for another passenger. The couple was traveling with 2 toddlers. The seat was occupied by the couple's 2-year-old son. For safety reasons, they planned to strap him into a car seat placed on top of it. But the airline insisted Brian hold the boy in his lap.
Because he's 2 and under.
Okay, I got a solution. He can sit in her lap. Okay, and then we can take off, and then we can put him back in the car seat. That's what the FAA rules are.
No,
the bottom line
with
is...
him being... No, they're not. We're pulling him up right now. With him being 2, he cannot sit.
To make matters worse, airline staff said the child could not occupy a seat during the flight because it was against Federal Aviation Administration rules. Which is horseshit. In fact, the FAA recommends the toddlers sit in government-approved car seats for safety purposes. And so does Delta's own website. Oh, and never mind the kid was in the car seat when the Shears flew out to Hawaii in the first place. The issue that Delta used to trip the family up in the end was that the seat was originally booked in the name of Brian's 18-year-old son. But the teen flew back on an earlier flight so his brother would have a seat. The thinking being that otherwise the kid would not sleep on the 5-hour-long red-eye, and it would compromise safety with him crawling all over his parents' laps. But technically, tickets on Delta flights are non-transferable. Eventually, the family accepted that they couldn't win and asked if they could give up the seat and get in the air. Nuh-uh.
To have you guys all off the flight, or we're going to deplane the whole aircraft, and
So we're getting kicked off this plane no matter what now.
Instead, Delta threatened the family with jail if they didn't all get off the flight. They were told that not having anywhere to stay was not Delta's problem, and the family was on their own. So at around midnight, the Shears had to scramble around for a hotel. They then spent around $2,000 on a new flight leaving the next day. And as if things couldn't get any worse, that flight was with United. On Thursday, Delta apologized and said they'd contacted the family to offer them a refund and additional compensation. Guess Delta just wasn't happy with United getting all the limelight. United Airlines drags passenger off flight. United Airlines is facing yet another PR disaster. That's after this footage of a bloodied passenger being forcibly removed from a flight went viral. The man was dragged from his seat as the plane sat on the tarmac in Chicago on Sunday, bound for Louisville, Kentucky. It all kicked off when United needed to get 4 staff members to Louisville, but then realized the flight was already full and no seats were available. Passengers who volunteered to give up their seats and take a later flight were offered $400 in compensation and a free hotel stay. But even when that offer was doubled to $800, there were still no takers. That's when United decided to choose the volunteers themselves, and 4 passengers were randomly bumped from the plane. One couple left the airplane without incident, but the man in the video refused. He said he was a doctor and needed to get back to Louisville to see his patients. United staff told the man that security would be called if he didn't get off the plane. Again, he refused, and that's when things got physical.
No, this is wrong. Oh my God, look at what you did to him. Oh my.
While this incident was undoubtedly brutal, United is within its legal rights to overbook flights and to remove passengers from their planes. They just have to pay compensation of up to $1,350, depending on the length of the delay. 10 minutes later, the passenger ran back on the plane looking confused. Eventually, all the passengers were made to deboard and go back to the gate while the plane was cleaned up. The plane eventually arrived in Louisville 2 hours late. In a statement, United Airlines apologized for what they described as an overbooking situation, but didn't say sorry to the passenger who was dragged from his seat. In an email to staff on Monday, United CEO Oscar Munoz said the man was disruptive and belligerent. The Chicago Department of Aviation says the security officer who dragged the passenger out of his seat has been put on leave, pending an investigation. United Airlines strikes again. The airline everyone loves to hate is once again in the headlines, this time for giving away a toddler's seat and forcing him to sit on his mom's lap for the entire flight. Shirley Yamauchi and her 27-month-old son were on the final leg of an 18-hour journey from Hawaii to Boston on June 29th. United Airlines agents at Houston's Bush Airport scanned their tickets and let them through without incident. But once on board, a passenger who'd been on standby arrived with a ticket for her son's seat, which she'd paid nearly $1,000 for. She notified a flight attendant about the confusion, but the woman just shrugged and told her the flight was full. Wary of making a scene and getting the David Dow treatment, Yamauchi was forced to hold her son on her lap for the entire 3.5-hour flight. The toddler was in several contorted sleeping positions before eventually ending up standing between her knees. After getting off the plane, Yamauchi told agents at the gate of her ordeal. They directed her to customer service, who then told her to call the hotline. Thanks, guys. So helpful. United's excuse is that the ticket was scanned incorrectly, making it look like it wasn't checked in. Which sounds like a pile of horse dung, if you ask us. The airline's own guidelines require children 2 years and older to have a seat. But guess those rules don't count if there's an opportunity to grab a couple $100, huh? Get it together, United. In news about airline absurdities, this one really takes the cake. JetBlue put a damper on a Jersey family's Las Vegas birthday bash when they decided to boot them off a flight over a cake. The Burks had brought the buttercream confection with them as part of their carry-on and initially stored it in the overhead bin. When a flight attendant told them they had to move it, they stashed it in under the seat. A second flight attendant berated her colleague and then accused Dad Cameron Burke of being non-compliant. Her behavior struck him as irrational, so he asked if she'd been drinking. She stormed off, and another flight attendant asked them to leave the plane, prompting tears from the Burke kids. Port Authority police was called on board, and one officer can be heard saying the family had done nothing wrong. Still, JetBlue reps ordered everyone to deplane in order to get them off the flight.
It's all right, baby boy. I know. Exactly. For cake?
We're just here.
A cake.
We were told that there's supposed to be some police action to be taken. Right here, I don't see any
Thank
wrongdoing.
you.
Okay. So
I moved the cake. It's a birthday cake.
you were not. Okay. All right.
Thank you so much, sir.
No one's in any trouble. I just need to have your ID, just for a report.
Sure, no problem.
Unfortunately, it got reported to us. No one did anything wrong. Okay.
No problem.
All right. Everyone's gonna be okay, and they're just gonna, unfortunately, they're gonna have to rebook everyone, and that's
Rebook everyone?
And this is what we're trying to avoid. That we wish we.
This is JetBlue?
It's JetBlue. So
JetBlue. Wow. Here you go.
Thank you. No one's in any. No, buddy, you're okay. All right. Don't cry. It's all right.
Thank you, Officer Chen. What's your name, Chen?
Hold on. Everyone, stay seated. Okay. Everyone, just stay seated.
Thank you very much.
Everything's gonna be okay.
Don't worry, you'll be all right.
They were refunded in full and ended up taking a United flight to Sin City the next day. Burke is thinking of suing and wants the rude flight attendant fired. But JetBlue is standing their ground, claiming Burke refused requests to remove the cake, yelled and cursed at the crew, and made false accusations about one attendant's fitness to fly. Father and daughter kicked off Frontier Airlines flight. A man and his daughter are claiming they were wrongly kicked off a Frontier Airlines flight in Orlando last week. Whitney Miller and her father Eric Miller were lucky enough to experience an 8-hour delay, so naturally they weren't in the best mood. Miller and her dad were talking about how miserable the flight crew looked and about how they would never fly Frontier again. Apparently, a flight attendant was eavesdropping in on their private conversation, and after hearing what they had to say, ran off to tell the other flight crew that she felt threatened. And you'll never guess what happened next. Frontier kicked 25-year-old Whitney and her 70-year-old father off the plane. The Millers said they will drive now instead of fly, while Frontier has refunded their tickets. Ah, the friendly skies.